And yeah, again, welcome to What a Mentor Wants You to Know. And to start off, I will give a little overview of the event for today. So we'll start off with just some quick introductions. We'll give you a little bit of an overview of the Handshake platform. Um, or not Handshake, the First Hand platform. I saw Hand and I was like, Handshake? First Hand. First Hand is the platform that we use to host our NU mentoring network. So we'll show you that a little bit in case you're not super familiar. And then we'll get into our lovely featured speaker, where she'll answer some questions, talk a little bit about her experience, and the rest of the time will be left for Q&A. And so moving on to the introductions, I'll pass it over to my colleague Heather to start us off.
Thanks, Jasmine. Hi, my name is Heather Piedrahita. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni and Community Relations, and I've been here at National for a number of years, but in the alumni department for about 2.5. And I'm an alum as well. I completed my master's in human behavior in 2011. Diane, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Diane Abeidu, and I am here in Texas. I am the communications coordinator, and I'm working with the Alumni and Student Affairs Department, and I'm more than happy to be here. Mhm.
And lastly, I'm Jasmine Banks, and I'm your student engagement coordinator here at NU. So if you're involved in any of our clubs and organizations, I'm probably a familiar face, but if not, mostly just here to help folks find community at the university. And I do a lot of collaborations with our alumni team, so we're happy to have you here. And I'm a soon to be student and then hopefully alumni in the next upcoming years. So that'll be exciting too. And so, just to start off, I did want to give people just a very, very short and sort of broad overview of our mentoring network platform, so folks feel like they're, tuned in and they understand what we're talking about. And so, with our NU mentoring network, it's our platform for career advancement. And so, it's really just an all-encompassing resource for folks who are looking to get mentoring in sort of a more intimate setting in terms of knowing that everyone on this platform is connected to NU at in one way or another. So when we say mentoring network, we're really referring to this platform. And so it's a website, and we have the URL here that you can navigate to. And you can sign up to be a mentor or a mentee. So you would click those get advice or give advice buttons, and you'll be on your way. And you can also set up an account pretty easily because you can set it up to your LinkedIn. So it'll autofill a lot of those things for you. And so once you sort of get in there and explore a little bit, you'll see that there's really a whole host of different resources available to you. Obviously, the mentoring aspect is a really big part of that. And so once you sign up and you fill out your profile, you'll get matched to different mentors and it'll tell you, who might be the best match for you in terms of career goals, experience, location, even different things like that. So you can scroll through those or even search related to different criteria. And I feel like one of the best things about the platform is that you can pretty much do it all right there on the platform. And so you can message people directly on there. You can set up appointments directly on there. Most folks have their availability, so you can see when they're available. And the meetings also occur on the platform. So once you have that one link, it's sort of that all-encompassing place for you. And some of the other things we do offer on the NU Mentoring Network, we have the Vault. And the Vault is essentially a pretty big library of digital guides. And so they have guides across all different types of industries, and all different types of topics. So it'll give you maybe tips for finding your good internship or interviewing skills, or what are the best internships in this specific industry, or what are the best companies to work for in this industry. And so there's really just a whole host of resources available to you there. We also have community spaces. There's jobs on there that links directly out to Handshake. And so if you've connected with that with our career services. You can see what jobs are available there. We also have a really vast video library, so there's lots of how-tos and also lots of videos kind of talking about some of those topics I just talked about in terms of upskilling. I know they have like Microsoft and PowerPoint on there. So really there's so much to explore on the platform. And so I just wanted to give you a little taste of what you'll be getting into if you haven't already gotten into it. But I feel like no better to tell about the mentoring network than our amazing featured speaker. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Heather to do a quick intro.
Thanks, Jasmine. Yes, I'm excited to introduce Vanessa Hernandez. Vanessa is a standout alum here at National University, having completed her master's degree in 2016. She's also the treasurer for the NU Alumni Association and our top mentor on the NU Mentoring Network. So we're very excited to have you here, Vanessa. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how NU has played into where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Heather. So again, my name is Vanessa Hernandez. I am from San Diego. That's where I am now. Um, I pursued my master's degree at National University in 2014. I got a master's in counseling psychology with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy. Um, I definitely have a huge passion on helping others. And when the opportunity came up, I want to say in 2021, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, when it launched, but I know I have like about 3 years with the mentoring network and meeting with mentees. And it just has been a very exciting opportunity. Um, a big portion of the NU mentoring network is that it's very flexible for me. So um, I can choose the days I'm available, the times. You pretty much set your own schedule. And so when everyone comes across your profile, and if you match, then they can set an appointment and then we can chat about any goals or questions in regards to maybe a career path or whatever it is that they're looking for. So um, being a clinician, a mental health clinician now, I've been working in the industry for a little over, 11 years, working with a variety of populations. So I often get requests from either current students or those who have graduated who are curious to know what that process looks like as far as getting licensed and where to work. And kind of deciding which route to take because there's so many paths to take with working within the mental health system. So it definitely has allowed me to create some really meaningful relationships with my mentees. Some schedule several appointments to meet and chat over it's anything that we're working on, any goals or any questions that come up for them throughout their path. But it's definitely created a lot of self-growth and it gives you a lot of new perspectives as well as for yourself. And really kind of honing down on your own goals and what you want to do to enrich your career. So yeah, it's been a very pleasant experience so far.
That's great, Vanessa. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we appreciate that you've given of your time so generously to support your mentees. Do you know how many mentees you've had at this point?
The last time I checked, I've had 83 consultations with mentees and from all over the US. So I've had some that would meet with me and they're in New Jersey or other states, and they're just kind of trying to figure out the nuances of being a mental health clinician because it does come with a lot of uh, roadblocks. But I've also had others who are not going down the mental health path, but are curious or just have a general question about resumes and making contacts like through networking and things like that. So usually try to engage everyone with what they're looking for. But definitely my specialty is mental health. So.
That's great. And I know we had quite a few questions submitted through the registration. So we're going to start with some of those. But if anyone on the call has additional questions or if anything comes up as we're talking, feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. That just helps us keep track because sometimes things get lost when the chat gets active. But let's jump in thinking about this as the title, What a Mentor Wants You to Know. Um, what do you think is helpful for you as a mentor when meeting with a mentee for the first time? What do you want to know from that person in order to be helpful to them?
Yeah, I usually start off with, thanking them for their time. I know all of us have a lot of obligations and commitments, especially when you're in grad school or undergrad. So I like to acknowledge that they're here and they're, putting themselves in a very vulnerable space and allowing me to guide them through that. So I usually start off with asking them what they want to work on. I'll have an idea ahead of time when usually when I get a request, it'll say that this person is looking for charting like a new career or updating their resume or switching or transitioning to a different path. And so I'll highlight, I see that you wanted to discuss resume writing. What were you looking to achieve today, or what were you looking to discuss specifically? And so I try to gauge what they're looking for. And sometimes they don't, mentees come in and they're just kind of looking for that guidance and not really sure what they want to discuss. But I do a lot of exploration. I do a lot of open-ended questions with them and get to know who they are and what is it that they're needing when we meet. So,
Speaking of mentees, I'm curious throughout your many sessions that you've done, has there been any questions that have really stood out to you and you're like, oh, that was a really great question. Like that will be really helpful information for them to know. And I know some of those might be more industry specific, but if there's any standouts.
yeah. Every now and then, and you would think it's a more common question, but I always get asked, like, how did you end up as a therapist? And so there's always a story behind that. And I share the beginnings of my journey and what that was like, and how I was had my own mentor kind of growing up unknowingly that guided me towards the helping profession. So I'll share some of my inspirations and what's guided me through this career. And just I think just it's always a thought-provoking question of like what how did you end up here? What led up to you being a therapist? And so I think many of the mentees find that very relatable. Um, it's not uncommon that you have your own personal experiences that kind of align with this profession and wanting to help others. So that's always a very profound question for me because it's a deep one. So.
No, I think that's good. And I'm sure that's very relatable to so many of us who have maybe made career decisions and then look to make a career change.
Mhm.
So when you speak to someone who is looking to go through a career change and they're feeling like, man, now I'm starting from scratch, what
Mm.
advice do you give them for that transition time?
Yeah, no, of course. And, like I truly believe that it's, I sometimes we get our undergrad degree in one, discipline, and then we end up in something totally different. And so I typically like to explore like what has led up for them to want to make the career change. And the advice is that, and usually I see this in a lot of my mentees, is that like you have skills and a passion to want to help people, and it really takes someone to have um that desire, to pursue this field because it could be a very a very tough profession. And I typically like to highlight their strengths because sometimes we don't get enough of that and that courage to want to switch from business to being a therapist, or from law enforcement to want to being more on the clinical side of mental health. Like that's a big transition, and I think overall just normalizing the fears that can come up with that, or the unknowns. So I think I typically side on just really validating my mentee, and just normalizing the jitters that come with that big transition.
Something I'm curious about, I guess, also in terms of validating folks, when you do meet with different mentees, I'm sure some of them also hopefully give back and become mentors themselves. And I'm sure we have some folks in the audience that probably do want to give back, but maybe they have some trouble seeing themselves as a mentor or someone to aspire to. And I think, even as people are going through career transitions, they may have, really important knowledge that they don't even know that they have. So how do you, like, what advice do you have for those people that are, a little unsure about themselves as a mentor?
Just take the leap. I mean, that's what I did essentially. And I always, there's like a few books that I recommend. I'm really big into like self-help books, and definitely providing some of those resources. And also acknowledging of like, I always say like, I don't like to be a gatekeeper of skills. Like, why not share this with everyone? We've all been there where we're really unsure, or things are not clear as we're going through grad school or undergrad, or like where we're going to end up or what jobs we can get. For me personally, I remember what that was like. And so you just never know who you can really truly inspire and help. I think we oftentimes undermine our skills when we're starting out early on in our careers. But I think that's like a big imposter syndrome type, uh, you know, um, I guess traits that we have sometimes, where we really just underestimate like how much we can truly give. So I usually kind of go through that. I discuss the imposter syndrome, and what that means, when we really downplay like all of the great characteristics, and other attributes that we have that other people would love to learn about and get inspired from. So.
No, that's great. I did a quick Google just in case anyone has not heard that term before. Imposter syndrome is if you doubt your skills, your intellect, or your accomplishments. And so a lot of times people have difficulty accepting their success. They feel like an imposter, like a fraud, like they don't deserve, the recognition, the position. And there's a little bit of fear in there, right? Feeling like you might be exposed as being incompetent or unable to do whatever it is that you're up against. And I can say I've spoken with people at every level, and unfortunately, I don't think it goes away. I don't think that necessarily getting to a certain career level or degree level means that all of a sudden you're just always confident all the time. I think it's something that we're always working on. Um, have you seen any differences in the kinds of questions that you get from mentees, whether they're at the bachelor level, master's level, or even doctoral level? Is there any difference in the kinds of conversations that you have?
Yeah, it's usually at the bachelorette or the bachelor's level. A lot of questions of like, what kind of job can I get with this experience? Like, what's available? And depending on what industry you're wanting to work in, we just kind of discuss, that person's strengths, and what is it that they're hoping, or what their goal was to do with pursuing higher education, and whether they want to advance to a master's degree or not, and so on. So at that level, it's a lot of like, what kind of jobs what can I do with this? Should I get a master's degree? Do I need a master's degree? Will this help? What does that look like for pay, for opportunities as far as, advancing in the field. So I get a lot of that when someone is in their bachelor's degree program. And in master's, it's usually like, I'm about to finish. Oh my gosh, I need a job. What do you recommend is the best place to start at to gain knowledge, to gain the experience of providing mental health services? What do I expect? And so at that level, you're already pretty much going to be providing clinical mental health treatment, and that can be kind of scary because you're diagnosing and you're treating now, versus in your bachelor's, you're probably doing more like case management or peer support type stuff. So each level definitely has its own uh curiosities, and as far as like what's next and what do I do. So that's typically what I get.
And thinking about different degree programs, going off of different levels of degrees, I'm
Mhm.
sure as you've done so many different consultations too, you'll probably encounter people from all different types of degree programs, and some of those may or may not match what you're doing now. So I'm curious what your take is on how much that shared sort of program weights when you're doing these mentoring consultations, and if people can reach out to someone who's maybe not in their degree and still get a lot out of the mentoring relationship.
Yes, every now and then I get a degree or a focus that I have no knowledge about. I'm very upfront and I say I have no experience in this industry. However, we explore like what are they hoping to gain, like if they find a mentor and how can we find one. A good example is I met with someone about a couple weeks ago, and they were pursuing real estate. And I mean, I did real estate like 20 years ago for like 9 months, and I just couldn't do it anymore. But I think the main thing is if, again, like it's all about connections. And I have a friend who teaches the real estate classes and who is a mentor for others pursuing that license. And so I asked him, I'm a multitasker. I'm texting him and saying, hey, I got someone here. They're really interested. They're going to move to California and they want to know like how to get settled in this industry. Are you open to meeting with them? And they're like, sure, give them my phone number. And right then and there, I was able to link this person to my friend who teaches at a university, all the real estate classes, and who is glad to mentor them. So I'll refer out and or I'll provide some guidance on how to find a mentor. But yeah, that's typically what I do. We try to figure out something and make sure that, I can give them some kind of referral that'll be helpful for them. So
I think that's a really good point you made, Vanessa, because sometimes you may get a request from a mentee looking for some kind of answer from you that you just don't have, right? And there's certain kinds of mentoring that maybe you're more qualified for. But really at the crux of it, mentoring is a form of networking too. And so it's not only like I can give you advice, but it's also I can give you connections. I don't know the answer, but I know somebody who does, and I can send you that way. So
yeah.
I think that's really great, and I appreciate that that's sort of the way that you've approached it. I think that's really smart.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about when you meet someone for the first time, we got actually several questions about how do you break the ice during a new mentoring session? How do you recommend building a relationship with a mentor or a mentee the first time? And how do you establish and maintain trust? So, again, several questions, but sort of dancing around the same idea.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that varies with breaking the ice. I have some people come in and they're shooting 3 questions at me. I'm like, okay, they're ready. Like they have a whole list. They just want to get to the point. And that's fine. Like we can do that. And then there's others who are maybe they've never done this before. And they're just kind of like, what do I ask? Or I get a sense sometimes, and some have shared like, oh, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're busy. So I just asked them about who they are, who they are, and sharing, a little bit about themselves, and, how they got to, wanting to do real estate, or wanting to be a nurse, or open up a business. So I tend to break the ice by allowing my mentee to do a lot of the talking. And I use a lot of open-ended questions, as far as like, what is it about real estate that, that you enjoy? And they might share like a story about maybe dad used to do real estate and would take them to all the open houses and how fun that was. And to like see that milestone for families was just very heartwarming. So, um, believe it or not, we like to talk about ourselves. And so I think if we give the space, and allow that, it can, roll off someone's tongue very easily. And then you're now focusing on, several goals, or, it kind of helps them narrow down like what they wanted to discuss. But breaking the ice, just getting to know them, seeing what they're hoping to gain from the session, from our consult, um, and just allowing them to kind of guide the conversation too, because I can talk a lot in one wind, and so I have to pause and make sure that they're allowing to ask questions, or dig deep on something else that they're interested in. So yeah, that's usually how to break the ice. Maybe we like the same football team, maybe they're in another state and I ask like about their college team, something like that. So
And I guess going kind of one step further, so now you're more situated in this mentoring relationship and there's trust established, and maybe
mhm.
you're such a good mentor like you are and they want more and more. How do you then go about setting boundaries, and also what kind of cadence do you feel works most effectively, at least with your busy schedule?
Yeah, so I do set boundaries and expectations. So like for example, I remain professional but also relatable throughout my discussions with mentees. Um, and some of those boundaries look like, it's really up to the mentor whether you want to give your personal cell phone number or your personal email. I have done that for mentees who might have follow-up questions, or if I'm recommending them to an employer, then they're going to want to contact me directly with certain questions. But I also let them know this is where you can email me for any questions related to whatever it is we're working on. So I make it very clear what these, how to contact me and for what. Um, the sessions are usually 30 minutes, and it does like this, I think it's like a 30-second countdown, and everyone starts kind of getting a little, afraid, like, oh my gosh, this is going to shut down. And I let them know that, we can go for an hour if you want. The session will not shut down, and I have a good hour that we can spend chatting. Um, or if I don't have that full hour, I let them know like, I do have like another commitment at the 30-minute mark. So, but yes, little things like that help a lot to just kind of keep that professional relationship with the mentee. Um, but yeah, and I let them know my availability. It's listed on the platform what days, and if they want to do an hour's worth, then we schedule that and we make it work. So,
That's great. Thank you. I think boundaries are a really important part of any relationship, but especially, like the tips that you gave there. We do want to let you know if you're live here on the call, we're happy to answer your questions. If you have a question you'd like to ask Vanessa, use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen. That will come up if you click on React. So it looks like a little heart and it says React. If you click there, there's then a button that says raise hand. Um, Good. So we've got Mary has raised her hand. Let me pull you up, Mary, and I will allow you to unmute. Give me just a second because my computer likes.
And now I think that it's time that I can come back. And I want to get connect with the school, and I also work with the to get my license. So I don't know where to start and how to do that. So is there any way you can help?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding, you haven't been in school for a while, but you want to go back and get licensed? Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing? Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think I've had this question before, and a lot of the things that come up of um, like I haven't been in school in like 10 years, like I don't know how to do this. And, people are using chat, what is it, GBT or all this new AI stuff, right? And I think, I like to tell my mentees it's just taking it one step at a time. If your goal is to get licensed, starting with like what do you need to do to get, make sure you're in the right courses or you're taking the right path or getting the right degree. And so kind of breaking down like what does that process look like? And also knowing the resources, right? So if there's tutoring available or if there's like a mentor that you want to meet with regularly to kind of discuss some of the unknowns or um, you know, I guess the changes in how school is done online versus in person. I think just really chatting with someone is really helpful to kind of clarify maybe some distorted thoughts is what I like to call them, because I think we always kind of go with the more error type thinking, and it's always helpful to just talk about it out loud, and it could really change your perception. But I mean
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so like I used to go North Central University, so I don't know if that university in the network with this, so or not. Like how do I get to connect with someone in the school?
Hmm.
Yeah, I can take that one. That's a great question, Mary. And Tin asked something really similar in the chat. So we are very lucky that our National University community includes graduates from National University, North Central University, and JFK University. So it's a really rich, vibrant, and diverse group. And all of you are welcome to utilize all of the services. So please, we honor the place that you graduated from and know that that's important to you, but there is no line drawn in the sand. So please feel free to jump in, participate in the mentoring network, alumni association, student clubs and orgs are open to everyone from those three institutions. So hopefully that helps you to feel a little bit more at home, and we'd be happy to have you back for any continued education or just further mentoring with someone like Vanessa. We did have a couple of other hands up. Let me see here. We had, oh, just kidding. They went away. People got shy. Okay, well, if you'd like to come back, put your hand back up. In the meantime, oh, John, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I think you should be able to unmute now. What was your question?
Yes, the one question I have is what is the mistake most mentors make when they first start taking on mentees? I'm getting ready to take on some mentees, just mentoring veterans as they transition from the service, mostly senior leaders. That's the question. The mistakes a mentor can make.
Yes. So I think some of the mistakes that can come up is that we jump to the solution too quickly. We provide advice too prematurely without really knowing all of the information. And I I would say like working on very like reflective or active listening, listening to what the mentee is asking for. Sometimes I can hear frustration in people's voices. I can hear worry, or I can sense worry and sadness or anxiousness, you know. Being really in tune with your mentee. Body language is huge. Some people don't like to go on camera, which is fine, but others do. Um, and just their tone of voice. But more than anything, I think as a mentor, we tend to think that because we do have the experience in this field, that we need to like solve a problem or provide a solution or make sure that, you know, this is a productive meeting. And sometimes I have meetings where we don't have a solution. We don't um you know, figure out, you know, the answer to their golden question. And that's okay because that those 30 minutes they were able to process like something that they've been wanting to discuss with someone that is listening. So I think just really listening to your mentee, and making sure that you're not imposing some of like solutions that are not realistic as well. Like for me, it might be very easy, like, oh, just talk to the person, ask them, you know. But for someone who doesn't feel that confident, it might not be what they're looking for, and they might kind of run into a dead end. So I would say just mostly that is what I've learned throughout my time.
That is great advice. I think sometimes we just want to solve everybody's problem, and that's not always possible, and certainly not possible in a 30-minute session, right?
No.
Uh, Delicia, you had your hand up as well. Would you like to ask your question out loud? I'll give you a second here to find the unmute button.
Mute. Okay, thank you. I have two questions to ask you. You mentioned about self-help books that you like. Can you recommend anything for further learning?
Oh yeah. So my go-to is The Four Agreements. Um, so that book is by Don Ruiz. Are you familiar with The Four Agreements?
No, I'm not.
Um, so the first one is not taking it personal. Um, be impeccable with your word. Um, well, I, I'm on the
I have
spot
it. I
here.
looked it up for you. And I put
Okay.
the link in the chat, but you
Don't take
got it
it
right.
personal.
Be
Be
impeccable with
impeccable
your
with
word.
your word. Um,
Don't take it personally.
and always
Don't
do
make
your best.
assumptions.
Yeah, don't make assumptions and always do your best. Um, and I remember early on doing therapy, I read that book because it was recommended to me. And it's amazing how those four agreements kind of change your perspective on the people you work with, the people in your personal life, um, and other situations that we come across and can be really difficult. So that's been very helpful. That's my favorite book. And there is another one. I think it's by Jen Sincero, but it's like something on like how to be a badass. You know, that is also my favorite book. Um, or sorry, you are a badass. Can I use that word? I'm so sorry.
Sure, we're all adults here.
But it really puts in perspective, again, our thought process. Like our thoughts can be our biggest enemy. They can give us assumptions that of where there's no evidence for these, you know, things that we're thinking about. And so that really kind of helps you check that thought, that negative thought about yourself. So I enjoy that book as well. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And um, my other question is, how do you build and maintain your network?
Um, with the platform, since it's so flexible and there isn't really like a commitment, like a 1 year commitment or a 6 year or a 6 month rather commitment with mentees, I'm just really real with my mentees, you know. I let them know the pros and the cons of my industry, and I think people really appreciate that sincerity and you know, I'm kind of a realist too. But also I think if, you know, when you mesh well with your mentee and they feel like, um, you know, they really connect with you, they'll come back. They'll come back. I've had a few repeat mentees that schedule appointments or sessions rather to go over other career related topics. So it's really up to the mentee that if they want to meet back with you.
Okay. And since you were so thorough with that, it just brought up another question in my head. But how do you stay motivated and inspired in your work?
Oh man. So I just to kind of give you guys a little background, what I do right now is I work at a police department and I respond to all the 911 calls for mental health crisis and emergencies. So I see a lot of things every day. And it really humbles you in a sense that like what I think my problem is right now is probably not the best, not the worst thing in the world. So um it's a combination of what I see every day here and also my upbringing. So my upbringing is a lot of lived experience with challenges. And I think that when you were once in a vulnerable space and your resources were limited, you kind of like get to this point of like, oh my gosh, I'm a professional now. Now I can do that for others. And I feel like confident that I can do that for others because I might not know exactly what someone's going through, but I might have an idea of what that, you know, what the situation is that they're experiencing. So that's my motivation is that I want to be able to give everyone as much as I can of myself and get them out of, I don't know, I guess I have this magic wand that I have a magic wand and my goal is to use that to help others and not have them experience those anxiousness or decrease some of that. So,
Thank you so much.
mhm.
I know one question that has come up a little bit, especially from folks that registered, is what is something you would advise people not to do? I know we talked a lot about the positives and things that you should do, but maybe what's some words of wisdom in terms of things to maybe avoid?
Stay in your scope of practice. If you're a mental health clinician, be confident with that. But I wouldn't give like business advice. I wouldn't promote my side business of being a notary, like, oh, you need the notary, you're gonna do real estate, I can do that for you. I mean, you know, for me personally, I guess because I come from like a law and ethics background that gets really ingrained for us therapists of like not being careful with dual relationships. Um, you know, uh, I guess the biggest thing for me is that you have somebody in front of you that's very vulnerable, and I wouldn't want to do anything to take advantage of that. I wouldn't want to do harm, like do no harm. So whatever that looks like, um, you know, as far as like boundary setting and setting expectations, it usually helps kind of avoid or minimize that. But we're all human at the end of the day too, so you might get encounters. I mean, I haven't had any in the mentee program, but with clients, for example, some people might be really attracted to your determination and your passion for your work. And it might get romanticized a bit. And you know, again, you just remain committed to being the professional when you are mentoring someone and not blur those lines because you don't want to give someone that that bad experience and if something, you know, goes wrong, but I wouldn't even like touch that area to be quite honest. So,
No, I think that's great advice is really know what you're an expert in, and give advice on that. And also know that you don't have to be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
right? I want to shout out a couple of resources on the NU side. We had a couple of questions about academic performance and want to remind the students that we have an academic success center for current students, right? If that's the kind of support that you need, that exists. The mentors can support with some resume review, but we also have certified professional resume writers on staff and
Mhm.
career advisors in the career services department. And that's available for free for students and alumni for life, right? So if you are in the mentor position and you're getting questions that you don't know, you don't have to know absolutely everything that might come your way. But there's a lot of other resources to support you in these times too.
hmm Just to add to that, being really self-aware
Mm,
of how you respond, or sometimes we're triggered by something, and just being really aware of yourself, and also just being cognizant, like if you do give your phone number or your personal email, making sure that they understand what that is going to be used for. Because you do run that risk if you're going to give your personal information. I tend to just refer mentees right back to scheduling an appointment through the platform, unless it's a very unique, specific situation where I feel comfortable giving them my email and, in regards to like helping them get a job or something to that extent.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for all of these insights. I see we do have another raised hand. Let me see. I think you can unmute now.
Okay. So my question is really, you know, so as a student, working, full time and, doing online, you kind of feel, outside, kind of, I don't know if, how to explain it better, but, I, like my undergraduate, my masters were all in person. And now, taking that leap of something different and taking online, and sometimes I feel I'm missing something. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, am I missing something? I mean, you have that weekly assignments, you have, all that email, but it's like, how do you, make sure that you are connected, and you are not in a silo, like you're just taking this class online and just answering questions, but you don't have that, school feeling, if that makes sense, you
It
know.
does. It does. Yeah. I am currently in a program right now where it's all online, and yeah, it can feel very isolating. Like one of the hierarchy of needs is belonging, right? Is connecting with others. And so when we don't have that, it kind of feels like, oh, am I missing something? Am I missing kind of part of this experience? Um, but you're able to connect and chat with your peers, through discussion boards, and through other means. Um, you know, I know oftentimes we got together to have study groups, and those were really fun. So I know not everyone lives in the same city, but you can also do like study groups online. But yeah, I agree. Finding a way to connect when you're going through that process is really important.
And not to shamelessly self-plug, but to shamelessly self-plug student orgs and clubs, which I help oversee. We have about 15 different student orgs currently, and we're always growing. You can always apply to start a new one, but lots of folks have found that those are really important community spaces for connection. So I'll drop the link tree in the chat in case you're curious about us and you might want to get involved in student orgs. We actually have an event coming up next week that'll be all about guided journaling and imagery. So if you're into things like that and you want to do that in community, we have that. And pretty much all of them meet virtually. So no matter where you are, because I know we're all over the place, you can still engage. So, shameless self promo over, but definitely check out our student orgs.
No shame at all. If you are an alum looking to stay connected and find some support, even if you are an alum, you completed, a bachelor's and you're doing a master's elsewhere, having a community can still help, right? And that's perfectly acceptable. So, I would encourage you to check out the events and community spaces for alumni as well, including the Alumni Association. And I'll grab that link here shortly and put it in the chat.
Mhm.
Vanessa, as we are kind of near towards wrapping up here, we're getting close to the hour. What are some of your final tips for mentors or mentees for making this a successful relationship and, moving forward into, I think quite a few people are probably creating their account right now and looking to request it, request the sessions. What is your top tip or final word for them?
I would say, um, just do it. Just do it. I think no risk, no reward, right? Um, I think what is that saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. Or what is it? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And I believe that, being able to share some of your knowledge and your skills with others is just very, very valuable. You just never know who you might really inspire as far as pursuing a certain career. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great networking platform, and yeah, I mean, my tip is just do it. The commitment is, I mean, it's very flexible. You set your own schedule. When I go on vacation, you can even set like time that you'll be away. It'll, not make you available during that time. So, you get to choose how much you want to really commit, and that's the beauty of it, is that it's open for as much as you want to give. So.
I think that's a great tip. And you have given so generously of your time on the Mentoring Network and with us here today. So thank you so much for being a part of this webinar and for being a part of the Mentoring Network as well. I think we answered all of the questions that came in our chat and quite a few that were submitted ahead of time. But if there's anyone else that would like to connect with Vanessa, we encourage you to create your account on the NU Mentoring Network. You'll see her on there and certainly recognize her face. And we've got some QR codes here as well to connect with the alumni team or the CSCA team. So, Jasmine, any final thoughts to add there before we close out?
Just to remind folks, to sign up to become a mentor, you'll want to navigate to the NU Mentoring Network platform. And I believe Heather had put that link in the chat, but it's nus.firsthand.co.
Thank you.
Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye, everyone.